What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 284 of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and this is the Hot Tags edition of the week, where I'm going to be breaking down some of the current events, rumors, news, gossip, and whatever the hell else is going on in the world of professional wrestling that I find interesting and I kind of want to talk about. So how you all doing today? Leave your comments below and tell me what you think about all these subjects and anything else that I might have missed along the way too, because of course if anything else happens throughout the week, try to come back here and maybe talk about it in the comments. But we do have a couple different things to talk about here. So let's start off with probably one of the biggest ones of the entire time, which was that Charlotte Flair's nude photos were leaked in another round of the fappening, which now I guess, I don't even know what number it is, but it's a regular persistent thing. And we also had more leaks of Melina, we also had more from Victoria, a couple from Maryse, although they weren't nude photos, they were just kind of like extra photos, and some from Sunny as well. But the biggest story out of the bunch for that is, of course, the Charlotte ones, because those are not nudes that anybody has seen before and stuff like that. So, of course, the very first thing to preface this about is that myself and anybody else on the Smark Out Moment team do not endorse the idea of people stealing nude photos from other people, because that is a horrible thing to do, and it's a total invasion of privacy and everything else like that. Then, once we put that out of the way, then let's just talk about, we're guys, of course we looked, that kind of thing. If you have not been following the Sexiest Superstars tournament, you would know by now that the list of the people here that we're talking about, I mean, Melina, Sunny, and Victoria are, of course, not in the tournament this year, but Maryse and Charlotte are. Maryse is still in, and we're on round 3 right now. Charlotte has been eliminated. She had been eliminated in the first round. I forget who actually knocked her out, but now I'm curious, so now I want to double check and figure out who that was. I think it was Liv Morgan, now that I'm trying to ballpark what the result for that was. Let's see. It was, yes, indeed, it was Liv Morgan defeated her with a, actually not too big of a margin. It was only 15 votes. That was the difference between the two. I'm a bigger fan of Liv Morgan on the sexual spectrum than on Charlotte, but Charlotte has her detractors and she has her supporters and all that other kind of stuff for a lot of different ways, whether it's like her promo skills, her mic skills, the in-ring work, her looks, etc., etc. Again, nobody really endorses the leaks and stuff like that, but if you're interested, I can't give you a link to it. I'm not going to be doing that. It's easy to find it out, and she looks pretty good for it. So at the very least, if you're going to get leaked, you might as well get leaked looking good than, if it's like, turns out that you got something weird going on there. But nonetheless, it is another leak, which means that by now, after having all these, and then the Maria ones, and the Paige ones, and a couple of the other ones that we had, I can't remember off the top of my head who some of the other ones were, but out of having all those leaks, I'm now to the point where I'm thinking, you know what? We may see a wide variety of leaks for the next coming weeks, months, whatever the case may be. And it sounds really terrible to say, but the main topic that I want to ask to you guys listening, who are you, I guess you could say, hoping would be released in the future if there are any more leaks? And again, I want to preface this for everybody who's watching this, as far as like a legal thing goes, totally not endorsing the idea of the leaks on a legal spectrum and stuff like that. But if you are going to be seeing some leaks, who would you be interested in seeing? And that could be for the men too. Doesn't have to be the women. I don't know what the status is of like how these people are getting these leaks or who's leaking them or whatever. But it is pretty interesting that it's not just normal celebrities, but it's also different like MMA performers and some of the wrestlers and everything else like that. So a huge market going on here with these nude photos being shopped around and stuff like that. It's an odd time that we've got going on, isn't it? Where this kind of stuff can happen so easily. But hey, delete your iCloud. That's the only advice that I would have, right? But let's move on from one legal thing to another legal thing. Titus O'Neil is going to be sued, apparently, over something that happened during Swerved. It was some kind of an electrical shock prank. Titus O'Neil kicked the camera out of some guy's hand, and he's suing for $1.2 million in damages, saying that he's hurt his hand, his fingers, and his wrist in the process. I don't know the specifics behind this in the sense of like what the prank was, because I kind of don't remember that. The last season of Swerved really sucked bad. I mean, like not even really all that entertaining in the slightest bit to me. So if it happened then, and it was like one of the fans that they were pranking or something, then maybe they cut it from the show. I don't know. It was really hard for me to actually remember anything that happened during that season because it was mostly like Big Show walked around and scared people, and Stardust popped up in the middle of nowhere and scared people. And by that point, I'm skipping through, and I'm like, I get it. They're going to jump out and go, bah, and scare people. And I don't remember the Titus O'Neil thing, but if that was something from Swerved specifically, and that the guy signed his whole release to be used on screen and whatever, I'm kind of assuming that the guy forfeited his ability to actually sue about that. Yet if they cut it and it was just filming and it was a separate thing, then maybe that's a different story. Maybe WWE didn't really get consent to start pranking the people, and then this guy just had some kind of an issue with it or something. I don't really know, but my first reaction to this was, is it just Titus O'Neil being swerved? Is this the Swerved itself? Is that Titus O'Neil's not actually being sued or something? Either way, it's an interesting story to talk about because it's one of those side things that isn't going to get a whole lot of notoriety. It isn't going to get like all the big sweeping news stories about it. Yet it is a big deal for somebody like Titus and for WWE a little bit, unless they can sweep it under the rug. Titus is getting sued. I mean, that's not a good thing to deal with. And if this guy is serious about his $1.2 million in damages, that is ridiculous. But then again, if he is actually that hurt, maybe it's something that's going to really hinder Titus in the future. Either way, the Titus brand is not looking as good in a legal sense as what it was a couple weeks ago or so. But I don't know. We're going to have to pay attention to that going forward to see if there's any kind of like drop the lawsuit, or if they settle with some kind of other settlement, or if this is all bullshit or what. But yeah, not a good thing for Titus O'Neil. Not a whole lot of good stories this week, actually, now that I'm looking at the list. There's a couple that are not good, not bad, whatever, but some injuries and some stuff, and man, that sucks. Let's bounce around to some of the smaller topics here. WWE held tryouts in London at the O2 Arena before Raw, SmackDown, Main Event, all those other kind of tapings that they took care of. They actually did a taping for the UK division too, but that is something that isn't specified like when it's going to air because we still don't know what's happening with that division, which is kind of crazy. But I don't recognize a single one of the names that was written down on the reports of who showed up for the tryouts. And of course, this isn't everybody, but these are some of them. Jurn Simmons, Adam Flex Maxted, Axel Juvenile X Gress, Christian TKO Tscherpel, Flash Morgan Webster, Travis Banks, Chris Brookes, TK Cooper, and others. I don't know a single thing about any of them. I don't think I've heard any of their names before. So if you are actually following the UK wrestling independent scene and you know anything about these people, drop those comments below. Tell us what to check out, whether they are good, bad, some of the future of the business, total jobbers. Kind of curious. But you know what? As far as the tryouts go, it doesn't hurt for WWE to get as many people as possible, because if we do get this United Kingdom division in some capacity, whether it's like NXT where they record multiple shows in one shot, or if it's live events, touring, or whatever, the more people you have around that area, the better. And you got injuries that get in the way, you've got people that leave the company, you've got people that just aren't star power. The more flexibility, the better. So if this Flash Morgan Webster guy is great, hire him. Put him at a lower rate if you need to or something, but I'm sure that these people are going to want to be a part of the WWE in some capacity, right? So, yeah, there's that. R-Truth is going to be getting his own game show on the WWE Network. Apparently, they recorded some sort of a test pilot a couple months ago, and this is going to be airing in the late summer, early fall or so. No details on what exactly it is, as far as, the name of the show or how it's going to operate or what, but I'm assuming if it is a game show that he's just the host of it, and whether it's like a trivia type of thing or maybe an offshoot of WWE Game Night that they used to have on YouTube with Heath Slater and stuff. I don't think it's that. I guess it's more, and this is totally no conjecture whatsoever and everything, I would picture R-Truth being more of the type that he would want to go around and interview people and like talk to people before shows at the arenas and stuff like that. Kind of like what Jay Leno used to do with like, oh God, what was the name of that segment? It wasn't headlines because those were the headlines. Jaywalking, that's what it was, jaywalking. Maybe something sort of along the lines like that. And you know what? R-Truth is charismatic enough that I could see that being kind of interesting. Either way, I'd be checking it out, whether it was a positive or a negative, at least for the first episode or so. Because, you always got to give something a chance, and you can never really say that you dislike something until you try it. As far as other WWE Network-related topics, I wanted to give my thoughts on the latest episode of Bring It to the Table. Episode 4, The Controversy Continues is what it's called. And this show is really good. I really like Bring It to the Table because it's something fresh. We have our interview stuff, we have our Stone Cold podcast, and we have our Table for Three and some different things, but Bring It to the Table just goes like straight to the jugular with some of these topics. And even though they don't make it as lavish as they could, or they don't elaborate as much as I really would like them to do in certain topics, I do think that it's good that we actually have Corey Graves and JBL stepping outside of the kayfabe and just kind of addressing some issues here and there, because it gives you a little bit of an insight to how the company operates. Like, they argue here and there about, like, say, for instance, the House of Horrors match. I was not a fan of it. A lot of other people weren't a fan of it. And their point of view, I'm assuming, which is their point of view and not just like company speak, was, hey, we tried something different. Just be happy we tried something different. It wasn't bad. I think that it wasn't really all that great, but I do agree with them that if they're trying something different, you got to at least give them credit that they're not being stagnant. Whether or not they are really, really believing that, or if that's sort of like the toned down version of their point of view or so, you could tell that they weren't so deeply enthusiastic about it that they're sitting there going, what the hell did people not like about this? This is amazing. They probably understand that it was not all that great. And Corey Graves even said, you know what, I could see people being upset about it in the arena because it makes perfect sense. So I like to see that they acknowledge their mistakes on this show. It's kind of a shame you can't get Vince McMahon or Triple H or Stephanie McMahon or, any of the people that are like the core behind the scenes creative team actually addressing these issues. That would be pretty interesting. They also had a little funny quip at the beginning of this where it was like Peter Rosenberg saying, I get in trouble every once in a while for saying this, and Corey Graves like, I got in trouble for my thoughts on Shane McMahon, and JBL's just sort of like, hey, I won $20 playing golf. Just sort of lampshading that whole Mauro Ranallo thing. I thought that was pretty funny. I laughed pretty hard at that. And the other thing that I thought was great, this is just a random aside too, was JBL saying, I would rather be captured by ISIS than have dinner with Sami Zayn. We make fun of, or at least I should say I make fun of, Sami Zayn quite a bit. I pick on him because I say that like he dresses and acts like a dork. And I really, really like Sami Zayn. That's why. It's kind of like I pick on somebody that I like because I am going to be talking about so many positive things about him that I'll also talk about the negatives too. He comes off as such a dork in certain ways. And to see JBL kind of talk about that a little bit made me crack up. So, a big fan of Sami Zayn. I really want him to be maybe the next Intercontinental Champion. Or actually, he can't be the next Intercontinental Champion because that's on the opposite brand. The next United States Champion. But I'd like to see him win the Intercontinental down the line too. And you know what? Maybe even the world title down the line. Not, with maybe this year or so, but somewhere. And, you pick on some of the people that you love. Another random little side topic to talk about, Dylan Miley. You might not know the name. Well, you're really not going to know the name for the future because he's changing his ring name. A breakdown for those who don't know. Dylan Miley is an NXT developmental star who's not really 100% on the main roster yet as far as the NXT main roster goes. Certainly not on Raw or SmackDown. But he has been doing a gimmick on NXT here and there where he's partnered up with somebody and he destroys his competition. But once he tags in his partner loses. And then Dylan Miley gets all pissed off and he wrecks the shit out of his tag team partner after the match. Now he's going by a different name. He is not going to be Dylan Miley in the future. He will be Lars Sullivan, which to me, it's kind of a lateral move. Dylan Miley does not sound like a big tough guy. It's like, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, there comes Dylan. But then again, Lars? I don't know. I'm not loving the name. I'm not loving the Dylan Miley name to begin with. Kind of would wish to get something else going on. Maybe cooler, maybe rougher sounding or so, but who really cares? Lars Sullivan is going to be just as good as Dylan Miley was. The in-ring performance and the character mean more than the name. So then we got to talk about injuries, and unfortunately we have two of them. One of them is a bigger deal than the other one. One of them is Emma, who has suffered an injury at a house show in Liverpool. Her shoulder injury apparently happened after taking a double knee drop from the quarter turnbuckle from Sasha Banks, and there's no indication of how long she's going to be out, but I got to assume that this is not a good thing for her because any time out for Emma just makes her seem like she's less of a trustworthy person because they spent month after month after month of her dealing with her injury, and then they did the whole Melina thing, and that went on for months on end, and she just basically got back, and now she's injured again. Maybe this is going to be that sort of thing where they go, shit, all right, well, we can't really invest that much into Emma until she proves that she's actually going to be able to stick around longer. It sucks for Dana Brooke, too, because Dana Brooke was starting some kind of a feud with Emma. They never really got the ball rolling for that one. So this is back to square one for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, maybe a couple of months, whatever the case may be for Emma. And it sucks because I do like Emma. I really wish that they could have been able to use her in more of a capacity on Raw or move her over to SmackDown if they need her. But the bigger deal of the two is Braun Strowman's injury, because this is not just a side feud that's going on. This is the main feud on Monday Night Raw right now. The main event for Extreme Rules essentially was going to be an ambulance match between Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns. And then, if the reports are true, Braun Strowman was going to face Brock Lesnar at Great Balls of Fire for the Universal Championship. So if he is out right now with the potential of 4 to 6 or 4 to 8 weeks, or even longer after that, with an elbow injury, that's going to cause huge changes to Extreme Rules and Great Balls of Fire. The good thing about Great Balls of Fire is it's far enough out that they still have some flexibility. You could have Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. You could have Samoa Joe versus Brock Lesnar. They never announced for sure that Strowman would face Lesnar. I personally do not want Strowman to face Lesnar because I don't want Brock Lesnar, I've said this a million times, wrestling at Great Balls of Fire and SummerSlam and Survivor Series and Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. I don't want Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania to begin with, let alone to spend an entire year building up to that because it doesn't mean anything to me. And for Braun Strowman to just be fed to Brock Lesnar at Great Balls of Fire is stupid. That's just going to hurt Braun Strowman in the long run. So I don't want that to happen. And I'm actually looking at this as bad as it is for Extreme Rules, it might be better for Great Balls of Fire and for SummerSlam. I'm personally hoping what's happening here is Roman Reigns, I don't know what they're going to do for Extreme Rules because they lost out on the Universal title match. They lost out on their big ambulance match. I hope he starts a different feud going forward, and maybe they carry that over a little bit into Great Balls of Fire. I don't know. I'd rather see Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at Great Balls of Fire and for Roman Reigns to win the championship. Then for SummerSlam, I want a triple threat between Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, and Brock Lesnar as the main event. That, to me, I think, solves a couple different problems. It doesn't fix Extreme Rules, and that means, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the roster right now, and it's like, well, you can't start something new with Braun. You can't start anything with Braun at this point if he's injured, but you can't start something new with Roman Reigns. And you need a main event. So Seth Rollins, Samoa Joe, by default, kind of becomes the main event. And then you got Dean Ambrose versus The Miz. You've got Alexa Bliss versus Bayley. Probably some kind of Finn Balor versus Bray Wyatt match. Maybe that could be like one of the supplemental main events or so. You got the Hardy Boys versus Cesaro and Sheamus. And I don't know if you'd really add another tag team match or so, but maybe that's good enough. You know, maybe we have 2 women's matches, or maybe we have 2 tag team matches, something with like Enzo and Cass, Gallows and Anderson, Slater and Rhino, Golden Truth. Maybe like the 4 of them tag teams to get together and have some kind of a match or something. Maybe we get Kalisto in some sort of a match against somebody as like a throwaway pre-show thing or something. But for Extreme Rules, if you give different matches gimmicks, they can be good enough. Like, we know that the Hardy Boys versus Sheamus and Cesaro should have some kind of gimmick attached to it. And we know that Dean Ambrose and The Miz could potentially have a gimmick. Finn Balor and Bray Wyatt could have a gimmick. Seth Rollins versus Samoa Joe definitely needs a gimmick. That could be good enough. Roman Reigns just sort of sits out the pay-per-view, and we get Great Balls of Fire, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar or so. From my point of view, that's the best way to get around this kind of thing, but it sucks for Braun Strowman that he's out. Thankfully, it's only 4 to 8 weeks, 4 to 10 weeks or so. It's not going to be like, the next 5 months or anything like that. So that's a good thing, because Braun Strowman has been kicking ass, and he's been the most entertaining thing on Raw by far to me. Second being The Miz. And I'm curious what you guys think would be the best way to get around here. What would you do for Extreme Rules, and how would you get around Great Balls of Fire in SummerSlam? Would you start a feud with Roman Reigns and somebody else? Would you just carry things over and hope that the fans are kind of okay with it and they understand that it's like an injury and it fucks all the plans and stuff? I don't know. Leave your comments below. Tell me what you think. That's going to do us in for this edition of the Hot Tags. I want to thank you all for listening. And I want to remind you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and to give us a thumbs up on this video. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment. Keep checking out the website, smarkoutmoment.com, for more. Vote on that Sexiest Superstars tournament, round 3. Stay tuned for the other stuff coming up later on this week, which is not only the Ask Him, but the breakdown of the tournament, and maybe something else if I get a little bit of time. But that's it. So I will see you next time, everybody. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and I'm being counted out.